everybody, and welcome to a beautiful wild ride with Steve-O. We've got the world's most famous plastic surgeon, a guy who makes people beautiful for a living, and he's damn good at it. Plus, I really wanted to talk to this man, Dr. Terry Dubrow, because I'm looking for a plastic surgeon to work on me. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's 100% true. And listen to this juicy-ass podcast, and you will find out all about it. Also, if you care to have a raging hard boner, the good news is this podcast was brought to you by Blue Chew. What's Blue Chew? Well, Blue Chew tablets are delicious, chewable tablets which have the same active ingredient as both Viagra and Cialis, except it only costs a fraction of the price. I'm telling you, it gives you a raging boner, something which I love to have. Now, you might be thinking, but don't you need a prescription to get this? And you are right. But the good news is you don't have to go to an awkward in-person doctor's office visit. No, you just consult with one of their medical providers online at bluechew.com. Couldn't be easier, couldn't be quicker. And then once you're done with that, boom, your Blue Chew tablets are on the way. And the best news about it, Blue Chew loves the listeners of the Wild Ride podcast so much, they're giving you an entire month's supply of Blue Chew tablets completely for free. All you got to pay is $5 for shipping. It doesn't get better than that. And if you're wondering whether this Blue Chew tablet phenomenon actually makes for a really good time, trust me and trust my girl, it does. Nothing's more fun than having a raging boner. So head on over to bluechew.com, use the promo code STEVO to collect on this offer for 1 month's supply completely for free. And with that said, let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Terry Dubrow.
Oh, wow, that was good. You pronounced my name correctly. Good
Well,
job. Thank you.
Very good. Off to a good start.
This is my co-host, Scott Randolph.
Hey, Scott.
How's
Nice
it
to meet
going?
you.
Up at the front, we've got the gorgeous Paul Brisky.
Nice
Doctor.
to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So I think that some people will find it counterintuitive that, why have the plastic surgeon? Is it safe to say that you're the most famous plastic surgeon in the world?
I think if you ask me, the answer would be yes. But whether I am or not, I mean, Botch is on in 164 countries. Can you believe that?
Right.
164.
Wow.
And so, I mean, I think if you were to ask internationally to name two plastic surgeons, it would be that other guy. What's Paul, I think, and me, Terry.
Who's the other guy?
Paul Nassif. So there's two guys on the show, Botched, right?
Okay, right.
And so I'm a head-to-toe plastic surgeon. He just does noses, basically. I mean, he's a great guy. I used to do noses, but he does them all. But I'm a classically trained plastic surgeon, so I do a lot of the stuff from head to toe. Yeah.
And Botched is of course what it sounds like. You're kind of fixing disasters that happened with plastic surgery gone wrong.
That's pretty much it. I mean, we've done 7 seasons where we just got picked up for 2 more.
Nice.
So 8 and 9. We're going to do 20 more episodes. And it started out by basically fixing people who've had disasters from plastic surgery. It sort of evolved into, like, if you're a victim of trauma or a bad congenital deformity,
Right.
whether you've had plastic surgery or not, and you have kind of a hopeless, unfixable situation, you come to us and we try to do it. We pretty much do it. Yeah.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. So you said that if you ask anyone in the world or in any other place in the world, they would have 2 guys, and both of them are from Botched.
Yes, Paul and I. It was the show was originally Paul's idea. We had worked for a short period of time together, and he called me up one day and he goes, "Hey, you do a lot of revisional stuff, a lot of fixing." I go, "Yeah, so do you." He goes, "Why don't we do a TV show about fixing impossible to fix plastic surgery?" I said, "Terrible idea." He goes, "Why?" I said, "Well, think about it. Most of it will probably go badly, and we've just put ourselves on national television with disaster complications that we could have, because the risk of a complication is exponentially higher when someone's had previous plastic surgery or when someone's had 15 previous operations.
Right.
So it's kind of not a great idea reputation risk-wise.
Right. Yeah.
But, you know, we sort of, you know how life imposes its will on you and forces you to do something that even if you thought was a bad idea, you just do it, you get really good at it, and we got really good at it.
So, I mean, that's really interesting. Do you find yourself, like, contractually in a place where you don't have control of the final edit?
No, we don't. We don't have control of, well, we don't really see the final edit. I mean, they're very sort of concerned about, you probably don't know this, but my wife's a housewife on Real Housewives of Orange County.
Oh, wow, cool.
And Paul's wife was a housewife on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills years ago. And so you have no control over that edit. In fact, they'll make you look bad. They'll make you look good. You have no. This show, we're never worried because they always say to us, "Ride the razor's edge." I'm a very silly guy naturally, and everything I see, I sort of find kind of off the wall and funny, and so I use a lot of off-color humor in the show that they can't use.
Okay.
So, or if they did use it, would make me look really bad. Because, on a reality show, you do those interviews afterwards.
Yeah. Right.
And then you try to say something funny, and it wasn't that funny, so you try to say it again, and invariably I get dirty with it. And I go, okay, you can't say that at all. And if they showed that, I'd be canceled, right? So they'll say, no matter what, we'll take care of you. They make us look like heroes on purpose. So I'm never worried about it.
Yeah, that's true. They never want you to look bad. That's kind of whereas the Real Housewives, it's like they need a villain, they need a good girl, they need they don't need that.
You don't want a bad doctor, right?
You don't want a bad doctor, but you don't want just an interesting, weird, uncool story is that my wife wasn't on Real Housewives of Orange County for the last 4 years. We were on the first 5 years, not the first 5 years of the show, but like seasons 6 to 11, we were on it. Then
this is after you were on Botched.
No, I started doing Botched about 3 seasons into Real Housewives of Orange County.
Okay.
Same production company. Okay. So you figure, they'll take. So we were off the show.
It's the same network too. Is it all on Bravo?
No, we're on E.
Oh, okay.
But the same company, NBCU. Okay. So Botch is on E. Real Housewives is on Bravo. We left Real Housewives, and now I'm just doing Botch, which was awesome. Right. Really fun. You have to worry about being your reputation being a problem. Anyway, we go back on Real Housewives of Orange County, and one of the new housewives apparently I had operated on 20 years ago. 20 years ago. And unbeknownst to me, because she looked so different, had a different last name, she had sued me.
And you just forgot?
For malpractice. I forgot. It didn't go anywhere. She dropped it. It was no big deal. So she comes on. I had no idea it was her. She knew. The other housewives figured it out, and they blew up the story instantly. My production company highlighted on Real Housewives of Orange County a malpractice lawsuit against me while I'm their hero on Botch. And I went to them and I said, "Are you guys smoking crack? You want to..." Anyway, it was really a bad idea. It really, I felt it really hurt my feelings. It was really disloyal. But that's what happened this season on Real Housewives of Orange County.
Wow.
How pissed would you be?
I can't even imagine. But yeah, I'm a very sensitive guy, so I imagine I would be upset.
I mean, I'm on botching these cases and to make a big storyline on even a bigger show about a malpractice lawsuit against me. Yeah. It's just not something. Anyway, whatever. Long.
Right.
Yeah, that would bum me out too.
It bummed me out.
I was less, motivated to ask about approval of the edit and control over what they include about how they show you in interviews than about how they would approach just failures.
Okay, that's a very good question. So you're right. Weirdly, in 178 episodes, we really only had about 3 go wrong.
And I mean, like, presumably, like you said, the risk is considerably greater in people who have proven to be prone to things going wrong.
Or they've had so much plastic surgery. You know, it's funny, in plastic surgery, you have a disaster complication either because statistically you're going to run into a complication, or you push your doctor, keep going bigger, keep doing more surgery, you just keep doctor shopping, having more and more surgery, so the tissue's ruined. So yeah, the risk in our surgery is particularly high. In fact, I have a special high-risk consent form I have them sign that says, you realize this is no joke. Your chance of a complication, even in our hands, who do this for a living, is extraordinarily high. It's as high as 40% or more. And of course, they think we're just covering our butts with this, but it's the truth. But to answer your question, 3 or 4 times it went... You know, I had one patient who ended up in the hospital, but they did okay. Where it gets tough is when you have a patient who has a complication, and then they go to an attorney who says, you know what, Harvey Levin, TMZ, is going to hear about this. How about you give us $5 million or we're going to expose this to you? Like almost an extort. That's happened once on the show. This patient tried to extort me who was on Botch. Immediately we fired him from the show, and we said, go for it. And we got the story out before they did, so it didn't actually.
And that's why you have insurance for shit like that.
Well, you can't have malpractice insurance for someone, you know, trashing your reputation. See, the big thing with me is if you sue me, that's cool, because I don't commit malpractice. I've been doing this for a long time. I'm a certified expert for the California Medical Board. I'm a medical legal expert. I know exactly how to do this within the standard of care. But you can get me by just the act of filing a lawsuit against Terry Dubrow from Botched.
It's like a bad Yelp review.
It's on steroids. By the way, the big threat is Botch by the Botch doctor. That's why when the show first started, before the first episode, it was named Nip Fucked.
Wow.
Nip F asterisk SCKD.
Nip and tuck. Nip and
fuck.
fuck.
It was a takeoff, exactly a takeoff on that.
Yeah.
We thought this is so funny. And then, like 2 weeks before the show, the first episode came out, Bravo said, the advertisers don't like that. We're changing the name. We go, okay, what do you change it to? They said Botch. We said, ugh, that's a disaster. Why didn't we want it to be Botch? First of all, it implies that some doctor blew it. Or if we blow it, it's botched by the Botch doctor. So we just didn't want that reputational hit. So that's always the threat. Oh, we're going to file a lawsuit against you. Not whether the lawsuit will prevail, just the filing of it actually hurts us because it goes viral immediately.
Yeah.
Right, but Nip Fucked has all the same issues.
It does, but Botched is like somebody blew it. Nip Fucked is funny. You know, you have to get fully past the nip tucked, nip fucked, ha ha ha. It just didn't have the automatic you ruin them, which Botch does. So
I mean, it is a juicy title, and I think that they did well to go with it.
They did, and now it's part of the vernacular almost. Botch, you know, they use it for other things as well. Botch mission. Well, you always can use that, but now it has that particular meaning to it because it's part of the, just like you. I mean, well, it's not as significant as that, but it's part of the cultural sort of language now.
Now, the show obviously is very successful.
Yeah.
Does the decline in television viewership, is it propped up by a streaming service? I guess the Peacock would be.
So the ratings, and I do follow the ratings. Of course, you live and die by the ratings when it comes to television. The ratings of landscape television have degraded, obviously, every single season. Weirdly, this last season, season 7, we went back to season 5 ratings.
Okay.
Which is interesting. That's why they picked us up for so many episodes. And it's still grading on a curve. So if the other shows on the network have degraded more by a greater percentage and you went up, you sort of not only didn't you degrade down 30% like all TV shows do now, that they go, I think the show, I don't know why it went up. I don't know. They gave it a little breather for a few months, but it did better. But I don't know why it actually did so well this last season.
I was in a hotel room with my fiance in November of last year, and it was just on a marathon, just one show after the other, and we just sat there and we were engrossed. It's the only time I ever watched the show.
Right.
And I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I just hung in there for episode after episode until it was just obnoxiously late at night.
Right. That's funny. I think the show, the reason it works is we have this nice relationship. It's plastic surgery gone bad, but everyone knows, you always question the authenticity of other reality shows. I mean, like what you guys did. I mean, when you fall off a building or something, everyone goes, that's dangerous. They're going to get hurt. Even if they don't, they got luck. Same with Botch. It's like we take this tissue apart that's damaged, a disaster. We've warned them this could be a complete nightmare with you ending up in the hospital and way worse. And everybody inherently goes, yeah, that's true. That's no one questions whether it's authentic, and you want to see the outcome, you know? And so I think that's why it works. And that was the very thing I was so afraid of, because it's predictably it should go wrong a lot of the times.
Right. My question on you said 3 or 4 times that it didn't go well. Did the show own that and include those sort of failure?
That's a very good question. So the answer is, one of the times it didn't go well, it was because she had a wound problem, and she was her wound popped open, and it needed dressing changes.
The incision.
The incision popped open. It got infected. She needed dressing changes, which is okay because as long as you treat it and it gets better, we're good. But she left a packing in there, and it healed over it. It pussed out. She ended up in the hospital, and she hired a lawyer. And I said, you stuck the packing in there. You know you're supposed to take it out. And that's one person who tried to extort me. So they were off the show. So that's one of the 3.
And that's not even a call that anybody made creatively. That's just...
That's like, you sue us, you sue the network, you're out.
Right.
The other 2, it just didn't work. The surgery we did just didn't work very well. And we were going to bring them back and try to fix them again, and the patients lost interest. It was like their 17th surgery. But I will tell you, one thing we don't show you on Botch is the following. A lot of times it looks like we do 1 surgery and they're fixed, and here's the after. Oh, thank you, Dr. Dubrow, you're the greatest. Sometimes we do 4.
Okay.
Sometimes I try to give people a 90+% improvement, right? And so if you are a total nightmare melted wax thing, sometimes the first big surgery is just trying to get you into the 60s. Like, I think of it like getting a score on a test, you want to get a 90, that's an A, and then you need to get like 96 to get in med school. But a 93% improvement in plastic surgery is a really giant improvement. So sometimes with 1 surgery I'll get them, not very often, I almost always get in the low 90s one time, but sometimes you get them into the 60s. You go, okay. And then 6 weeks later, you get him into the 80s, and then you get him into the 90s with 3 or 4 surgeries. If you try to push it into the 90s sometimes with 1 surgery, you're going to go the other way, and you're going to make them worse.
Okay.
Or put them in the hospital.
Now, plastic surgery, is safe to say that it's always elective surgery, and as such not covered by insurance?
Okay, so there's plastic and reconstructive surgery. So the stuff that's considered reconstructive, like breast cancer reconstruction, a congenital deformity, breasts that are giant, those surgeries that have sort of a functional component, not just a cosmetic component. If there's a significant functional component, that's covered by insurance.
Okay.
But taking a bump off somebody's nose, not. But having an airway, a breathing problem, that is often. So sometimes there's 2 components. And breast reconstruction, even though it's cosmetic, it's pure cosmetic because you don't have a functional problem when you have no breasts. Insurance companies will pay for that.
Okay.
Breast reconstruction.
Now, in the case on the show, when you've got 4 surgeries, is the show covering these surgeries?
So the show covers the surgery.
Wow.
And they pay us a certain amount to do the surgery, and then anything after that we kind of take care of, because I'm not putting you on the after. I'm not showing an after that's terrible. It's got to be rock star.
So that would make me believe that the budget for this show is pretty astronomical if you're covering all of this surgery.
Well, 98% of the time we nail it with 1 operation. So for example, let's say the show pays $20,000 to have us operate on the patient, okay? $20,000 covers the anesthesia at the facility. I might charge normally under normal circumstances a lot more than that portion of $20,000. That's the procedure fee.
Well, especially if you're taking a big risk by
Yeah,
doing the surgery.
but obviously I'm it's just they pay us enough just to cover it, and we're sort of, as far as I'm concerned, once I'm in, I'm in. By the way, I kind of do that with my own patients. If you fly, most of my practice is botched, meaning you don't really come to Terry Dubrow because you want a simple bump taken off your nails, or you want simple breast enlargement. You come to me because I'm going to fix your desperately hopeless problem. If I charge you a lot of money for it because I have special skills. I mean, maybe I'm not Tom Brady, but you don't pay Tom Brady, $1 million a year to be your quarterback. You got to pay him because he's going to win, right? Well, I'm going to win. I'm going to win. And so if I don't, and you've flown in from today, I had most of my practice, overseas practice, is back. I had 2 patients were from Africa today, patient from Sweden, a patient bunch from Texas, New York. You come in, you come all the way in, we charge you this amount of money. If it doesn't work, I'm going to keep going, and I'm not going to keep charging you every time.
Right.
So we don't lose money on Botch.
Do you have a favorite body part that you work on?
Well, the most
besides
common
the boobs.
Could this doctor be any cooler? It's like you want him to be your dad. He's so cool. And let me tell you, Father's Day is coming up mighty quick, which has me thinking about some of the coolest things my father taught me. Like, if a little's good, a lot's better. And never overpromise and underdeliver. God, I love my dad. And I'm guessing you love yours too, so why don't we get him something really cool for Father's Day from Harry's, which is the single company in the shaving products industry with the highest customer satisfaction. They just make quality products with no pricey gimmicks, and they're giving their best offer to the listeners of the Wild Ride podcast. Plus, for Father's Day, you get 2 cool choices. You can either get, if you're a first-time Harry's customer, this killer starter kit, which comes with the weighted ergonomic handle, the 5-blade razor, the cool travel case for the blade, and the foaming shave gel. Or you can get free engraving on any premium shave kit so that Dad can have his own cool engraved razor. How about that? Now, to get this deal, you just go to harrys.com/Stevo. Plus, I can think of a lot of funny things I might get engraved on a razor for my dad. Just putting that out there. So head to harrys.com/Stevo to get this great deal. And now let's find out if this doctor is a boob guy or a butt guy. Are you a boob guy or a butt
You
guy?
like breast? Well, okay, so the most common plastic surgery procedure is breast augmentation. That happens to be the one that has the most risks associated with it. Because you think about it, you make an incision, you open up a pocket, and you throw in a foreign body. The immune system comes by and goes, what is this?
Right.
And a great percentage of time, it decides at some point in the future, maybe not right away, but maybe a year later, 3 years later, hopefully never, it decides, I don't like this, and it forms intense scar tissue around it, encasing
Is that
it.
called capsular
That's
contracture?
exactly, you learned from the show, huh? That's good. That's exactly what it's called, capsular contracture, and, you'll go back in, you'll try it again, and then it'll get infected, and now you've lost tissue, the nipples will die, and you've got this gnarled up crab claws appearance where there's nothing there. What are you going to do? You go to the botch doctor to try and fix that. So that's the most common complication. So for that reason, that's the most common fix-it surgery.
Okay.
But my favorite, I like doing really difficult stuff that doesn't necessarily have breast implants associated with it, because I can nail breast implants and fix it, and it's perfect, and they love me, and they're happy, and then 3 months later, the body went, nah, fuck you. And it just put scar tissue around it and said, I don't like this. And you go, ah. So even though technically I nailed it and got it to heal,
Right.
the body said, no, I don't like it, and put scar tissue around it.
Okay.
Damn.
Now, you said the nipple will die. What does that mean?
Okay, so when you take a breast apart, right, you have to naturally, when you do any surgery, you cut blood supply. by the very nature of making an incision. When plastic surgery, we lift tissue off. As you lift it off, you're cutting more and more blood supply. As they've had more and more surgery, there's more scarring within the tissue. So there's naturally less fuel going to the nipple, right? Well, if you cut too much skin here and too much skin on the side, and you lift it out too much, and you take too big of an implant, and put it
You're
in there.
undermining the circulation.
That's exactly right. You're choking off the fuel supply, the oxygen, the arterial blood flow to the nipple.
And so that's going to do nerve damage?
Not nerve damage. It's vascular damage. So
Okay.
nerves is for sensation. So the vascular damage, so it starts to turn blue and then black. And
Oh,
if
it
you
dies.
It dies.
Wow.
Necrosis.
Wow.
And so what you want to do is, it's a game we play with the tissues. This tissue has been completely damaged and trashed. How much more trauma can I subject it to before I bugger it, before it now doesn't have enough blood supply to stay alive? And I'll give you an example. So there's a case. These were on Botched. I have these cases in my real practice too, not that I did, where a doctor will go to Mexico or go to some guy. What's weird in plastic surgery, any doctor can do plastic surgery legally in this country. A radiologist can decide to take a weekend course and call himself a cosmetic surgeon on Monday. It's
but
legal.
not in Mexico?
No, in Mexico too.
Okay.
But
Mexico can be a street vendor.
it's true.
Perform
But
a-
it's legal. If you go, how'd you like a radiologist or a rheumatologist or a cardiologist to do cosmetic
Yeah,
surgery?
fuck that.
It's not cool.
I
right?
mean, but
they
you
do
gotta,
it.
you gotta figure America's so litigious that
That's what protects them.
Right.
But they still do it. Okay. So, in general, for example, if you take someone's abdomen to do a tummy tuck, you make an incision, you lift it up, tighten the muscles, and you pull the excess down and cut it off. If you also do liposuction to that tissue that remains and beat it up too much, the whole thing can die.
Oh,
So I've had cases from Mexico, from Arizona, from all over the country where they do too much liposuction and the whole thing the next morning is turning blue. And then it turns black and the entire abdominal wall dies. Necrosis.
Can it go back?
Can you go back and fix it?
No, I mean, can it go back to
mean,
life?
yes.
Grow back. No. Well, okay. So if you identify that that's happening and it's from a reversible cause, right? You can maybe help it and keep it alive. But most of the time when you've beaten it up too much, that's not a reversible cause. If you put a breast implant in that's too big and it's squeezing off the blood supply to the nipple and you go, oh, it's dying in the first 24 hours, and you take the implant out, let it breathe, you can
okay.
reverse it, allow it, and then put a smaller implant later. But in most of the tissue, once it starts to die, you can't salvage it. So that's what I do. Like it's missing parts surgery.
So in the case where the abdominal wall dies, I mean, there's no bringing that back to
No.
life. You're gonna have to remove that.
You remove the dead tissue and then it scars in, and you maybe do a skin graft or whatever it's done to get a closed wound, to get biological control of the wound. So now you have this massively scarred up, contracted
So
disaster.
that's a skin graft situation.
That, or it just scarred up and closed on itself, but now it looks terrible. So what do you do for that?
I mean, if I'm trying to imagine too, when you say abdominal wall, I'm thinking about muscle, not
The muscle doesn't die. You
Okay.
can't kill the muscle. It's got the blood supply comes from too deep. It's the skin.
Okay, so the skin, and when it closes on its own, I'm picturing that it's contracted. It's so tight that you can't sit up and stand up straight. Or
You can't sit up. You're in chronic pain. It's pulling the nerves, giving you neuralgias. It's a disaster.
So you're gonna have to open that up and then add in. It's like that's grafting.
No, well, yeah, you don't necessarily want to graft because it'll look terrible. So you try to bring in like tissue that looks so you try to. We have
that's
this
a butt cheek?
expression. That, for example, we steal from Peter to pay Paul if Peter can afford it, is the expression.
Wow, I love
right?
that.
So, if it's an abdomen, sometimes I'll rotate up a piece of tissue from the leg that's very close and undermine it here and recreate it that way. Or you can put tissue expanders in sometimes.
How's that not a graft? Or is
That's not a skin graft. A skin graft is you basically mow a piece of skin off, mesh it, and you put it on here. It looks terrible.
I've got some right here.
Is that a skin graft?
Yeah, you see that little mesh?
Right. That was skin. Where did they take that from?
That was cadaver.
Cadaver skin.
And isn't it crazy that means that cadaver's flesh became my flesh in the one area?
Isn't that cool? Was that a burn?
It was burns, yeah.
Yeah,
15% of my body. I had the flesh from 7 different dead people grafted on, and that one little patch became me.
Well, how did you get burned?
I laid in rocket engine fuel, and this guy set me on fire.
As you do.
Really?
Yeah.
It hurts, doesn't it?
Burns are the worst. And like I ended up on a little bit of a tour of burn units and heard repeatedly that people who have been either shot or stabbed or both will always tell you that burns hurt the most.
They do. Burns hurt the most. So I did a full general surgery training after med school. I went to UCLA med school. Then I did 7 years of general surgery training where you're like the trauma doctor. And I was chief resident in trauma. And then I went on to plastic surgery. When you do burns and plastic surgery, you spend a lot of time in a burn unit. So I spent a year in a burn unit doing burn surgery. And it is the worst injury of all.
Absolutely.
And you know what you die of when you have a massive burn all over your body?
Dehydration.
That's right, because the
water's going to try to cool down the burn. That's what a blister is.
Well, no, the main function of skin is to hold water in your body. So when you burn a large percentage of your body surface area, that's what we call BSA, body surface area, you can't keep water in it. You die from hypovolemia. You die from dehydration. So that's why you got to get these things covered and grafted as fast as possible. Otherwise, people just sweat to death. Not really sweat.
I read an article in Brazil they use tilapia skin to do skin grafts, or some places do pig skin or human skin. What's the difference, and why would you?
It's about the immune system.
The scales.
So you if it's a xenograft, which is a non-human skin, your body will immediately reject it. So it's a temporary thing, but the body is going to slowly eat it up anyway. So if like someone's really burned but they're unstable, you don't want to do the final human skin grafting, you can put pig skin on, but you have to take it off.
It's essentially a Band-Aid.
It's a Band-Aid. Now, cadaver skin, the best skin is your own skin.
Right.
So you take a skin graft from one part of your body.
Yeah.
That's normally what you get, is your own skin. Because cadaver skin is not the greatest either. You can do it for very small areas, but for big areas, you got to use your own skin.
Wow, I got away with it then because I had pretty large areas.
Yeah, 15% is a lot. I mean, did they admit you, put IVs in you,
It
do
took
the whole
him 5
thing?
days to go in.
I didn't go.
And he was just
You have a picture?
he was pacing his hotel room. I'm like, dude, we gotta go.
I was just
he's got
toughing it out. Ah, boy, do I have pictures.
Yeah, because that's...
He looked like E.T. He had a big bulb on the end of his finger.
Oh yeah, the blisters. I mean,
Really?
I'm sure Steve's about to show you all of it.
I had bona fide bags of skin. I don't even know what the medical term is.
What do you mean bags?
Like
Like blisters.
Blisters.
But,
Yeah,
but like this
bulleye.
size just hanging off.
Really?
Of his
He
arm.
popped them all and took a shot of it.
Okay, there's one.
Oh, yeah, that's a serious bird, man. Look at that.
Yeah,
Holy shit.
yeah.
But they admitted you for this, right?
They did. Well, I waited for 5 days,
Ooh,
and
you're
the
lucky they
pain-
didn't get infected. How did you deal with that pain? 'Cause that's-
It was the worst pain I've ever experienced. And each day the pain got worse and worse. By 5 days, I couldn't handle it anymore. I tapped out and I went to the hospital. And at the hospital, they said, you need emergency surgery
Yep.
right away. And they asked me when was the last time I had eaten, and I had just eaten.
Yeah.
I went in there saying that I wouldn't have any painkillers because I'm a sober guy.
Right.
And
then
then they said, oh well, because you just ate, we can't operate on you for another 8 hours.
Right.
And I said, okay,
give me something.
yeah,
Right-
give me
right in the
something.
neck.
And my arms were so burned, they put it into my neck.
They put in the jugular. Yeah.
Yeah.
An IJ. Yeah, that's where we do it. Sometimes patients were so burned in my general surgery training that you'd put the needle right through the burn into the big vein.
Wow.
It's all about fluid resuscitation when
Is
it
that
comes
the
to burn.
aorta?
No, it's a vein. Aorta is the main artery.
Sorry.
You don't want to put anything in that.
Yeah.
You said that early in your practice you were working in a burn unit, but was that doing plastic surgery after the burns had healed?
Yeah. So when you're a general surgeon, you deal with acute burns.
Right.
Like you go to a burn unit, it's all a bunch of general surgeons. So they cut out the dead tissue. But plastic surgery is focused on burn reconstruction. So if someone has a burn and they have, a web here or a contracture, you can't lift your arm.
Help us understand what a web is.
So if you get a burn from here to here, it shortens the skin and gives you a web.
Okay.
So you can't extend your neck at all, right?
Right. That's why they told me I had to be really careful as I healed to move.
That's the key thing.
Otherwise,
because you get burn contracture. It'll heal in one. Yeah. So we have all these fancy techniques to lengthen scars, or so that you can move, have normal range of motion, or
when you lengthen a scar, God, that's fascinating. Do you have to plug in each strip?
So the general principle behind lengthening a scar is you have to make incisions outside of the scar to bring tissue that's normal into it to lengthen it. So, for example, if you have a scar contracture band here, so you'd make a cut here, and you'd make a cut here. It's called a Z-plasty, and you would elevate up tissue here, and then transpose it, which would lengthen the whole thing. And that's how you get relief. But you have to make additional
It's like a geometry trick.
Wow.
It's very trippy.
Yeah. It's cool.
So, I mean, a lot of what I do now, obviously, is just total disaster surgery.
Do people ever try to just throw more money at you to keep you going, to keep improving the...
That's how they got in trouble to begin with. What I run into now is I say, look, just because I'm on a TV show and I crack a few jokes and I do this impossible surgery, doesn't mean you won't have a complication. Doesn't mean you're gonna have perfect breasts or perfect face or whatever, or perfect stomach. So I will get them. It'll be a lot of times I'll get an A-. They want to be what they were promised with their first surgery, which they wanted to be perfect. And I say, don't use the P word with me. How about, and I can't tell you how many times in the last 7 to 10 years, patients, I'll say, don't you think it's beautiful? They go, oh no, it's beautiful. It's just not what I want. I go, whoa. It's beautiful, period. Or it's beautiful, period. Thank you. You're the best.
Especially since these people, by definition, are like the most self-conscious, insecure, vain. Like you've got this heightened thing. So of course,
you have to be very careful, particularly the ones we bring on the TV show, to make sure that they have realistic expectations. We try to undersell them and over-deliver. Everybody tries to do that. But we really try to do that. But they wah. It goes in one ear out the other. You're the botch doctor. You're on TV. You've got special powers. And we go, whoa. I do not have special powers. If the risk isn't too high. See, the problem is you can bugger them going from an 83 to a 93.
Right. For sure. It's like playing blackjack.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. So you have
walk
to be
away.
really careful. And in my real practice, I've had a couple patients where it's an 89% improvement. They started out as it was a disaster, and it actually looks good. It looks good, but they don't want it looks good. They want it to be it's awesome. And I go, listen, this next one we could run into we could run into data here. I could have a problem, and when that happens, then they get pissed.
Have you ever used a blackjack analogy?
No, but I might start doing that.
Right, like, hey, you're sitting here with what do you want, 21 on blackjack?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
you're sitting.
You got
here
a 20.
You're sitting here with like 18.
And you're asking for a hit.
You're asking me to give you a hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, we obviously have them sign these forms.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they just sign them. And I say, read these, And if you ever watch Botch, we really warn people.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, that's what heightens the drama of the show.
It does.
Is that there's this inherent risk of catastrophic failure.
Well, Were you about to ask me a question?
Yeah, but if you're finished with...
So there was an episode of Botch where this woman had all this. You ever heard of these pumping parties?
Candidly, I had not heard about these pumping parties, but God, are they fascinating. What I have heard about that pumps is my heart, and I know all about how it pumps because I wear a Whoop fitness band. It's the single most sophisticated fitness tracking device on earth, period. And now it's completely waterproof. You just take your waterproof charger, you slide it right on top so the band never comes off. And man, this thing is going to make you healthier, happier. It's going to make you sleep better because you're going to find out what's going on with your body at all times with the Killer Whoop app. It's synced up to your phone. You're going to find out so much awesome stuff. Like now it's even got your blood oxygen on there. It's got like a little haptic dynamic which can buzz your wrist when you've reached your optimum amount of sleep. I'm telling you, what are they going to come up with next? It tells you about your heart rate variability, which is a very important metric. All stages of sleep, recovery, how many calories you're burning. I'm telling you, I love my Whoop band. And this company, Whoop, loves you, the listeners of the Wild Ride podcast, so much, they're giving you 15% off at checkout if you go to whoop.com and use the promo code STEVO. Jump on this deal because it is epic. It is whoop.com, that's WHOOP.com, and you use the promo code STEVO for 15% off at checkout. Man, love Whoop. And thank you. Now, let's get back to it.
They'll go to a hotel. They'll have caulking materials from an unlicensed person injected in their face rather than pay for, or non-sterile silicone, and it causes like masses and inflammatory disasters. There's one on Botch where she was turned down by every doctor for the last 10 years, and she looked like the Elephant Man. Her name's Raji. I mean, I can show you a picture. I'll bring up a picture, okay? Masses everywhere of inflammatory granulomas. And she came on Botch, and she came on and we turned her down. Because we turned down a third of the patients on Botch.
I mean, you got to figure that if everybody else is turning her down, what's the likelihood that you're going to go and put a big television spotlight on it?
Not only that, if everyone else turned her down, a bunch of board-certified plastic surgeons turned her down, and you take her to the OR and you make it worse, the hubris. I mean, it's basically you knew that 10 other doctors turned down.
Right.
Why did you do that? That's almost sounds like malpractice. You're getting over into you're doing experimentation. So this woman comes on season 3 with concrete in her face. Concrete masses. I mean, unbelievable.
Just Home Depot shit?
Like Home Depot shit. Literally caulking material. The person who did it ended up going to jail for murder. She got injected a couple people in their butt and went up to their lungs and killed them. So she was, the madam they called her. So she comes in, and then I thought to myself, gosh, she's really walking around. I thought about it for about 6 months, 9 months. The next season came out, and I thought, and I woke up one morning at 4 o'clock, and I had an epiphany about it. I thought, I know how to fix her. Don't go in there and try to, because it was so close to the surface, even if you could remove it from the inside, you're going to devascularize the skin and it's all going to die. And now her face is going to be necrotic, gangrenous, like a zombie. So I thought, wait a minute, I'm not thinking about this right. What if I just took the part off from the inside that was causing the mass and left the part right next to the skin intact, keeping the blood supply intact? Just as long as you can't see it.
So I'm trying to follow that. Does that mean, like, what if I
take off the bottom half?
Take off the bottom half, leave the concrete in, but just get it further away from the surface.
Exactly. And just get it so you can't see because if you feel your skull, it's super irregular. Right? I mean, there's lumps and bumps all over it, but just as long as it looks smooth, you don't care that you can feel your zygomatic arch and the way it inserts into the maxillary area. You know, who cares? Just as long as it looks okay.
So is that a function of pulling the cement underneath like muscle tissue?
So you have to go in there and lift it up. So now it's attached to the skin, and here's the mass right here. Well, rather than trying to pull this whole thing out, I took an orthopedic saw, and I went zzz, and cut off this part so it sat flat. And I did it all over her face. And for a year and a half, the big concern is when you do that, you're just going to piss off the body and the immune system. The body will go, fuck you, and just start forming more inflammatory tissue.
Right.
For a year and a half, she looked amazing. I have pictures. It's on the internet. And then she came back, and some of them grew back. I took her back again and took more off, and now it's been 6 years. Perfect.
Wow.
So that was my epiphany. But at the end of the day, had that gone badly, she could have said, you know, all these other doctors said my chance of a complication is 100%, and you promised me, you know, it's on TV, so no one's going to, it's all
Right.
evidence and proof that I didn't overpromise.
Right.
Right.
But it worked. And since then, I've had patients fly in from all over the world, and I've done that.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so
It's a little bit like sweeping the cement under.
It's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it is. I had, so being on Botch also forced you to, and I hate to use this word too loosely, but invent procedures. Because you don't really
Right.
want to invent procedures. 'Cause it sounds like, again,
Right.
you're experimenting on patients.
but you have to be creative.
But you have to be creative using fundamental surgical principles. Then it makes sense. Then it'll hold up in a courtroom.
yeah, yeah.
So
For sure.
I had a woman who, very thin woman, who had gigantic breast implants put in her buttock area as butt implants. And it's like, what? And it caused so much pain and hardness, and it was compressing her sciatic nerve. She couldn't live like that. So she had to have them taken out. It got to the point where she couldn't even walk. Very attractive woman, really perfect body, but had these big, giant implants in her butt, compressing the nerve. The problem is, if you take them out, the buttock skin is just going to sit here,
Right.
like, you know, you're like you've had triplets or something.
Right.
And,
Sure.
and so what do you do for that?
Well, that's got to be the most common question, because when people are getting breast reductions or getting implants removed, like breast implants removed, you've naturally got all this saggy skin, like the person's just lost 100 pounds.
It's true, but you still have breast tissue. Remember, this is a girl who, and the implant had atrophied her, any buttock tissue she had by compression. It just gone. And you have basic structural changes you can make that make sense. The buttock has its own natural architecture, and if you mess with its architecture too much, see, the face, your face is defined by your bones more than your
Right.
skin. Beauty is in the bones. What are the bones of the buttock? There is none.
Right.
And there's no real tissue in the buttock when it's been destroyed by previous implants. So I thought, how do I give her volume without using implants? Because she wasn't going to tolerate implants anymore. So what I did was I invented a procedure where I took her tissue,
Her love
her
handle.
love handle. That's exactly right. It's the words I was looking for. Her love handle tissue. Just as long as you leave a portion of it intact where a main artery is going in, it's got a fuel supply. And I rotated it down into the buttock, lifted the buttock skin over it on both sides, and removed the excess skin, and went, come on. Now, that is a procedure that exists for reconstructing horrible cancer deformities, where you flip it over on the front, but it's never been flipped as a cosmetic procedure in the buttock. And now it's like a thing I routinely do.
Wow.
That's awesome.
It's one of the most common things I do. If someone wants more buttock protection, I throw it in, you know, because you can't inject free. You've heard of Brazilian butt lifts? That's like
BBL.
BBL. You've
Wow.
heard. You know what a BBL is? You do liposuction, and you inject it into the buttock to give
Okay.
people bigger buttocks. I mean,
Oh, so that's like a
Kardashian
like a
thing.
cellulite transplant.
it's like a fat transplant. It is. It's a pure fat transplant. Okay. So the problem with that is if you get those fatty particles a little too deep into the buttock, there are very short blood vessels in the bottom of the buttock that connect right to the inferior vena cava, the main blood vessel that leads back to the right side of your heart that goes to your lungs. You inject fat into those short little gluteal vessels, it gets into the main inferior vena cava, it goes to your lungs, dead. On the table or maybe within a couple days. It's the most fatal procedure in plastic surgery, a BBL. In fact,
really?
it's so fatal that they gathered an international task force to try to get doctors to stop doing it. I stopped doing it, but it's still super common. So if you can rotate someone's love handles instead, that doesn't have the same risk. It can't get into the blood vessels. It works.
Wow.
But, you got to... It's not something you really want to teach other plastic surgeons.
Yeah, I was going to say, are other people now doing your surgery?
No, they're still
Terry Foldback or
right,
some kind of name.
Right, the Terry butt lift.
The Terry butt
Yes.
lift. Yeah.
Yeah. The Terry Transformer. Because I picture it like a transformer going from a car into a robot.
Well, it's interesting. In medicine, you used to be able to name procedures after the doctor who invented them. And then that became a big no-no. So I lost interest. Once you can't name it after the Dubrow butt augmentation,
That's
I could care
great.
less. No, I'm kidding. They still are injecting fat. They're just trying to keep it more superficial. But when you hear of 8 people dying in a month in Florida, it's from that operation.
Wow.
Man.
Dangerous.
What is the like the dysphoria, or is it some kind of a condition where somebody just keeps getting lip injection and they think it looks pretty?
Yeah, I think you're looking for dysmorphia.
Or no, but like
That's right.
But they look in the mirror, they think it looks beautiful, but to everybody else, it's so fucking big.
Yeah.
Like, do they not see how big it is, or are they seeing something different than we're seeing?
It's
or
BDD, body dysmorphic disorder. BDD. It's where what you see is so out of proportion to what the normal person sees, right? Like, for example, someone will have a little bump on their nose. Oh my God. And then you take it down, they still see it, and they'll get another surgeon. That, by the way, if every once in a while, so the way it works on Botch is they'll send us the pictures, and at this stage we go, I can fix it, I can fix it, I can fix it, bring them in. And you bring them in, immediately you're looking at them going, okay, are you a psycho? You have to, it's the binary psycho, not psycho test. And if they immediately, you can tell a psycho, right? It gets your red flags.
it's in the eyes.
It's in the eye. You go, okay, no matter what, even though this is the coolest case and I want to do this on TV, you're too much of a psycho.
There are sleeper psychos.
There are, by the way, there are sleeper cycles, and that's the ones that we're super afraid of, right?
Right.
Because
all my ex-girlfriends.
right, right. So they'll charm you, the sleeper cycles. They're sociopaths sometimes. They'll white knight you. Oh my gosh, you're the best. Oh, take pictures with me. No, I know. Even you aren't, foolproof. And then afterwards, oh my God, this is a disaster. So you have to be really careful the way you evaluate the sleeper psycho. So sometimes on Botch, they come and you go, I want to do this so bad. And the producers will say, you sure? And I go, I'm sure. And we've been doing Botch with the same producers for so long. They're the first ones that hear about it. I'm unhappy. So if I say they're psycho, they go, bye, next. And now, we have 15,000 people applying to be on Botched all over the world.
Bet.
So it's really easy.
I'm curious, like, for you, what's the incentive to do the show? Did it raise your profile enough?
It's like asking a tattoo artist why they would want a reality TV show about their tattoo practice, because once the show comes out, they've got a waiting list of like 4 years.
Yeah, is it
so much demand.
simple as that?
So, when you're a doctor, I did a TV show called The Swan. Did you remember this show?
I remember
I
that.
was the doctor of that show.
Wow, I totally remember that.
That show put me on the map and got me, I was only 4 years out of my training when I did it. And so it got me the most mature practice. I was booked for 5 years after that show. So I got really good, because it's all experiential. It's like what you do. You get good at what you do all the time, right? You can't have anybody do this stuff, right? So the more you do it like sports, the better you get at it. So I got really good really fast. Not because I'm so talented. All of my training was the best in the world at UCLA. But if this guy's doing 100 plastic surgery cases a year and I'm doing 820 in 5 years. This is why Kobe would get to the gym before the other guys and would be the last to leave. You do 20,000 shots that day, you're better. You're just better.
Yeah.
So I got really good really fast. But when it came to Botched, I thought doing a TV show is fun.
Yep.
Doing challenging plastic surgery is really fun. The question is, why would I want to do it anymore? I'm not going to get any more famous than I am. You either know who I am or you don't. And if you don't, what color is it? The rock that you've been living under? No, I'm kidding.
That was great. That's great.
No. But at this point, my wife said to me that, she goes, why do you want to keep doing Botch? And I said, because it's like being a fighter pilot, you know? It's like you want to fly. It's just hair on fire, and it's cool, and I'm really into it, and I love it, and I'm good at it. And at the end of the day, surgeons want to operate. That's what we're born to
For
do.
sure.
I just got back from a vacation in Hawaii, and I consider it the most miserable experience I've had thus far this year.
Why?
Because
Bored.
Bored. It takes me about 10 minutes to get completely bored if I'm not doing something, and I gotta believe that that's got.
Okay, so we haven't been doing. The pandemic really slowed us down. They weren't sure whether they were going to bring us back because they had 178 episodes. That's like enough to go into syndication or whatever their version of that on cable TV is. So they were going, and then so we haven't done Botch for like 9 months. Usually we do it, we go start right into production again. Okay, so normally I do Botched. All day on Wednesdays, we film the consults, and then half day on Tuesday, we do the botch surgery. And so I said, you know what?
That's when you're in production, but you're not in production all the time.
Exactly. But normally we weren't out of production very long, but we've been out of production for 9 months. And so I said, well, maybe I just won't work on Wednesdays anymore. You know, it wouldn't be nice because I worked my ass off. For a while, I was operating 7 days a week. There was no difference between Sunday and Monday for me. So I started not working on Wednesdays. And then I'm sitting around going, and I call my office and go, maybe book one case Wednesday morning. And they go, okay. My wife goes, you're doing a case? I go, yeah, I'm just going to do one case Wednesday morning. And then all of a sudden I'm going, you know, maybe just book another short case after that.
Sounds
first
like
case.
me with my touring agent.
Right? You want to, and it's hair on fire, man. I love operating. Plus, what am I going to do with these skills? And we have this expression in surgery where if I don't operate for 2 weeks, I'll notice the difference. If I don't operate for 3 weeks, you'll notice the difference.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? It's like playing tennis or football. You need to be operating all the time. You can't
Stay
take
sharp.
too much time off, and and your volume can't be low. Even at this advanced stage of my life and my career, I need to be in conscious operating where I'm going, okay, I'm going to go over there. And, it's like driving. How did you get there? You didn't even realize, I've been driving.
It's incredible.
Right.
You go unconscious.
We just spoke with champion UFC fighter.
Okay.
Who was a simultaneous champion in 2 different weight divisions.
Not Connor.
Not Connor.
Okay.
It was Daniel Cormier.
Oh, awesome.
And he said that I asked him how satisfying it is to, while commentating, say, this fighter needs to roll over on this hip, use this, and then exactly what you said is exactly what happens. Is it so satisfying? And he said, yes, it is, but since I've stopped fighting, those times are fewer and far because I'm not. The further you get away from fighting, the less you can see.
Exactly. And so it's really important to be operating. If you want to do difficult surgery, to be operating all the time doing difficult surgery. It's funny. So my wife, if you're interested, I'll show you my house. We build houses, right? I mean, occasionally. And so I built this house in Pelican Crest, quick story, from the ground up, beautiful house, and we sold it and then buying this lot and building it.
Is this in the same neighborhood that Kobe lived?
That was Pelican Crest. He didn't live in Crystal. We're in Crystal Cove. He lived in Pelican. That's the same neighborhood. Yeah, he lived right around. Yes, one of the thrills I had is one time, a buddy for my birthday bought me seats on the floor at the Laker game, and it was like one of his last games, and I had seen him around, and he knows who I am, and we'd seen each other at Disneyland. We sort of waved to each other. He comes up to me and goes, "Hey man, how you doing?" In front of my friends, I go, "Yeah, Kobe Bryant."
Oh man.
Yeah. Anyway, so I get a call from a friend of mine. He goes, "Hey, isn't this your old house in Pelican Crest?" I go, "Yeah." "Who's there?" And I know my buddy does the clothes for Conor McGregor.
Okay.
And he goes, is Conor renting that house while he's training for his fight against whoever he lost to?
Dustin Poirier.
No, Khabib.
Oh,
I think-
okay. That's been a few years.
Yeah. And so, yeah, maybe it was. Yeah. Anyway, And I said, he goes, yeah, I really can't talk about it because Connor had, like the Secret Service there basically guarding him. So then Saturday he calls me up and he goes, hey, what are you doing right now? I go, I just got home from work. I was wearing exactly what I'm wearing now. And he goes, come over to your old house. I'm thinking, why? He goes, just come over. I drive over. It's 2 minutes away. And I open the door. It's my old house. And hadn't changed that much. And Conor McGregor's there with a foot injury.
Oh.
Wow.
So he had a bunch of skin pull off on the mat. I took him to my surgery center. I worked on him. It was very cool. So
that wasn't the serious break that he got.
No, that wasn't
Right.
that one.
My foot was
the
a
fight
balloon.
before that.
Is that
Right.
right?
That was with Dustin, right? Yeah. So
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was the fight before that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've been dying to ask you this.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about men getting breast implants? Boob jobs.
So you mean that when they're transitioning, or just as a goof?
Just
Because like I
that's the whole
gotta tell
question.
you that
Yeah.
I'm at a point with all of my crazy antics that the bar is so high. I'm actually planning for my next tour, because I do multimedia comedy and I tell the stories about these crazy things and I screen the footage in the theater.
Right.
And for my next tour, I've decided that it's called Steve-O's Gone Too Far Tour, and I'm just trying to be so crazy. And one of my ideas is to get
Breast implants.
breast implants.
So we had a person on Botched. You can see it on YouTube who did that. They lost a bet.
Okay, I mean this was ages ago. I think
You saw it, and he thought it was so interesting, and so
He kept it for like over
kept
10
it.
years.
He did, and so if you're gonna do it, put him in and then take him out relatively short.
Okay, because that's
thereafter.
exactly what I'm thinking. Before I go on the tour, I want to restore everything back to.
Yeah, if it isn't in for too long and doesn't stretch your skin because last thing you want to do is have to have them removed and a bunch of scars put on your chest.
Right, because that like secretly, candidly, like one of my main reasons I was so excited to talk to you was to ask about this.
Yeah.
And what the because it just seems like it's got botched written all over it.
It does.
To have if I get the breast implants removed and then I've got all this loose skin.
Yeah.
And is that something that you can clean up?
Yes, but what I'm telling you is you're not going to keep them in for a year, right?
I think closer to 6 months.
I
Maybe
think
3.
if you don't,
Maybe as little as 3.
okay, if you don't go too big, with
what's
the-
too big?
Yeah, how big can
I'd
it
like
go?
to see
think-
some double D's on them.
do you?
I want to go as big as I can.
Show me your chest. Do you have any loose skin now?
Yeah, I've developed dimples under my man boobs, and that's why.
Oh, you have some loose skin. Well, the problem is you're a little stretched. If you go too big, how big is too big? If you go to a D, all right, and you keep these in for...
Isn't D a relative term?
Well, in general, we all know what a B cup is. It's like pornography. It's hard to define, but you know it when you see it, right? So a B cup is like, a champagne glass,
Yeah.
right? A C cup, you start to get into sort of an orange, and there can be a small C, mid C, full C. We all know,
Cantaloupes.
you and I have an understanding, this is D, right? And this
Okay.
is double D, okay?
Okay.
You have enough room. You could probably do D or double D. If
Oh,
you do
shit,
that and you keep
Steve.
it in for 6 months, that's getting maybe past the point where your skin will retract, okay? So you
Okay.
might want to do a C cup.
But
and then get them out at 3 to
I-
6 months, and you won't have to have a skin reducing procedure and a bunch of scars.
But scars, if that's your worst case scenario, that's not that bad. You
Or
got scars all over the
necrosis.
body.
Like I'm already,
Or
dude, I
necrosis.
was already just mortified that I took off my shirt on camera just now. Like taking off my shirt and feeling good about it is part of my past, and so if I have scars from,
You don't care.
I mean, I don't know. Like,
Well, I mean,
I
and
don't
your
know, I
nipple
don't-
falling off.
I don't necessarily want to have scars. But I take that back. But
By the
I
way,
do.
if you do this, would you do me a huge favor? You don't have to say yes or no right now, because I'm sure the answer is probably no. If you put in breast implants, will you please come on Botched and
Dude,
show us,
But
please?
the answer is absolutely not no. If anything, my wheels are turning about how we can get into business together to make this happen where we're botched and, like...
I'll tell you how. I can't put them in, Okay, because
I
you're
don't
doing it as
even-
a
yeah.
you're doing it as a goof, but you can get any doctor to put him in. I could probably turn you on to a doctor to put him in for free. I'm sure I could,
Right.
but I'll take him out.
That's exactly what I want to do.
Sure.
That's it.
Imagine the ratings of
Okay.
that episode.
For sure.
Right. There, okay.
Steve-O on Botch having his implants taken out. Come on.
Wow.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, dude, secretly that was like my
camera sound
highest goal.
Oh,
For
done.
Oh, dude, I love it. Okay, the boobs to me are so funny. There's so many different fun ways. Like for example, I recently bought a smart car for the purpose of crashing it into a brick wall to make sure that the airbags work.
Okay.
Right? It's called the airbag test.
Okay.
But if you follow me after I get my boob job, I want to crash the car into a wall to do a fun bag test.
A fun bag test. Well, they won't get injured. The
Okay,
breast
like-
implants are incredibly
pop?
tough. No, we Paul and I have dropped them. We ran it over with his Ferrari. And then,
Dude, you're my favorite. you're my dude, Terry Dubrow.
What a bro.
Dude, the most. I knew it was going to be the most fascinating conversation.
Yeah.
thank you. We ran it. By the way, when Blythe first asked me, I said, "Are you kidding me? I absolutely want to meet him and talk to him. I knew this would be incredibly fun." But we dropped it from a building in Beverly Hills. We ran over with a Ferrari.
I'd be less concerned about the implant itself than the actual tissue.
Yeah. So that, by the way, patients will always say to me, "What happens if I get into a car accident and the implant ruptures?" I say, if you get into a car accident that's significantly traumatic enough to rupture your implant, worry about the structures underneath your implant, like cardiac damage or pulmonary damage.
Right, or even
If
just the tissue, the skin around.
No, I mean, I've seen a lot of car accidents with breast implants, and it's really, you worry about the cardiac contusion, the rib fractures.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, it's not going to do much.
So we're going D. We're getting them out within 3 months.
What
That-
if you had like Francis Ngannou punch one and try to break it?
By the way,
Wow.
He could try to punch your tit
by the
right
way,
off.
you know what you could do? You could have a doctor. I can't believe I'm telling you this.
If only we had cold opens on podcasts.
Oh, we might need one on this one.
All right, but you could have a saline. So there's two kind of implants, right? They're both silicone shells, salt water and which is saline, and then silicone on the inside, right? You could have a saline implant massively overfilled, so it wouldn't require impossible amounts of trauma to get it to rupture. You could have that UFC fighter, that big giant guy, smash your chest with his fist in an overfilled saline implant. That would probably, if he did it hard enough, that would probably rupture it.
You'd have to go straight to the doctor, right?
No, I mean, you could have a ruptured implant. You want to get it out soon enough.
If he's got the saline in there,
Yeah.
if you drilled a hole or punctured it, would it just the water would just come out? Like, can you just puncture it and just squeeze the water out?
No, because his tissue thickness is like this, right? So it's like, say it's 2 centimeters, say it's 3/4 of an inch thick, right? Until
Right.
you get to the implant. You stab through it. You pull for example, a knife
It's gonna
out.
leak into his tissue.
Immediately the tissue collapses on itself.
Okay.
So it would rupture, because I've seen stab wounds. It would rupture on the inside, which is okay, but it would not come out.
But if you stabbed it with a straw, like a juice box,
but you're never getting through the
Juice
skin.
box.
Oh, and you kept it
if
in.
it's a
Yeah.
metal straw, you stab
Okay.
it in, you
Capri
can drink
Sun.
it out, right?
Right? Capri Sun.
Like a Capri
So
Sun.
on Botched, by the way,
Yeah.
we've had patients who have such giant implants that are starting to wear through the skin that if we just took them out and the skin's so thin, it has such poor blood supply that if we put a smaller implant and cut all that skin off, the skin would die. It needs to thicken up. So what I've done is you take an IV
Yeah.
and you put it in there and you drain it out. Let it contract down, scar tissue forms around it, then it's safe to do it. The tissue. But no, you can't.
I'm just thinking out loud here,
Okay, this is a complete change of topic, and we'll wrap it up here soon. But I think anybody in the medical field has heard stories about people coming into the ER where they've put something up their butt
Yes.
and they can't get it out.
We had a drawer.
You had a drawer.
We had a drawer when I was at the county hospital, when I was in general surgery, where it was the drawer of stuff we pulled out of people's butts. It was a legendary drawer.
Okay. I thought you were saying that somebody had a drawer
yeah.
up their butt. Okay.
No, a drawer. You pull it out, and it was filled with
It's like the
candlesticks and vibrators and like partially decomposed.
I've heard about a squirrel or something, like an entire squirrel.
A squirrel wouldn't make the drawer. We had those. Wouldn't make the drawer because they'd start to smell.
Yeah, I know.
Because they're
You
dead.
could put it in a case of formaldehyde.
Yeah.
And keep that.
So
in the drawer.
I'll tell you a quick story if you want.
Yeah.
In general surgery. My best stories are from general surgery. Too bad we don't have another hour. I could tell you one of those.
I mean, dude, we're approaching longer than we've gone, but dude, I'm
All right,
fascinated
I'll tell you two quick stories. See if you like them. One is I had this patient come in. I'm an intern in general surgery, and I've been up all night for days. I'm tired as hell, and I walk in and I see this guy. He's sitting there, and I go. The ER said, "Hey, we've got a consult for you." So I come down. It's 2:00 in the morning, and I say to the guy, I go, "What's going on?" He goes, "No, I can't go to the bathroom." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I'm really constipated," and I go, "Okay." So how long have you been constipated for? Oh, about 12 hours. I go, well, some people get constipated for 12. He goes, no, I can't. And I go, I
So
tried to get, he won't tell me
yeah.
what's going on. And all of a sudden you hear this, zzz, and you go, I'm thinking, well, tell me. And he wouldn't. And so finally I look up there and I look up his butt and I put the proctoscope in there, the otoscope. And sure enough, on the end of this vibrator was like a clown's head. And then you go, whoa! And you see it's like this big clown's head. And he's got this clown vibrator stuck up his butt. So we had to take him to the operating room. And we told him, hey, we'll put you under anesthesia. We'll try to relax your sphincter enough to pull it out. But if we can't, we got to
Surgery.
open you up. Take it out.
You open it up from the front.
You open it up and, go down to the colon and make an incision in the colon and pull it out there. You'd rather not do that because that's big time surgery.
Why would it get stuck? I mean, wouldn't it come out? Or
So what happens is you put a vibrator up there or some object up there, and there's all these sphincteric muscles.
O-rings.
They collapse around it, and
it's-
it's also it moves up there. You can't get it out with your hand, and you can't get it dilated enough. You try in the OR when he's under anesthesia to dilate it, and reach up and get it. But once it starts to get up towards the splenic flexure of the large intestine, way
Yeah.
up there, the only place to get it out is whoosh, whoosh, and open up the intestine and pull it out that way.
It's like a Chinese finger trap.
yeah, Paul,
Finger
how,
trap.
By the
how
way,
do you
that's
get your
exact-
dildos out?
They just come out. You have like a plug, see, that keeps it at the sphincter level. That's the key. You never go all the way in.
Okay, quick story, general surgery that I think is so up your alley, maybe. So, I'm chief resident. These two brothers stab each other.
Okay, not in the hospital. They come in.
They
That's
come
their
in.
trauma.
We got a trauma run. Over beepers go off. Trauma run,
Right.
trauma run. So we come down and
Both brothers in the same
both
ambulance.
brothers and same ER and the two bed next to each other because it's the red blanket room where where they're going to bleed. So
Are
we
they
put 'em-
both stabbed in different places?
So one brother stabs his chubbier brother like 15 times in the abdomen. Boom, 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 boom. You fucking. And then the chubbier brother stabs the skinnier one time, right here on the side of the chest. Okay, so they bring
So
them
that's
in
a kidney?
up in the upper chest. Kidneys in the back of the abdomen. Okay, so on the upper chest. All right. So the skinny brother with a single stab wound in the chest seemed fine. So we put him this bed. His brother, who he stabbed 15 times, obviously the entire trauma team is focusing on him. Well, as chief resi, you get to sort of stand back because you get to make the big decisions, while everybody's gathering around these people. So I'm talking to the skinny brother with the single stab wound while we're all focusing on the guy, putting IVs, putting Foleys in him, getting ready for the operating room. And I say, how you doing, man? He goes, I don't know, I'm they're going, fuck you. They're screaming at each other. I go, how you feeling? He goes, I'm thirsty. I said, you're thirsty? He goes, yeah, I'm really thirsty, doc. That, when someone says to you they're thirsty, they're about to die
Wow.
after a trauma.
Why? Because everything's going there?
They've lost so much blood, or their heart's having trouble. There's some weird feedback thing in the brain. Thirsty is a pre-mortal event, okay?
Wow.
Super thirsty. And I go, I go, you're thirsty? He goes, yeah. And I look up, and his pulse rate's starting to slowly go up. His vital signs have been stable. Single, no big deal stab wound here. And all of a sudden...
Well, I mean, you're talking about a stab wound to the chest.
Right. But he was fine.
Okay.
All right? So, I slowly pull the thoracotomy tray. We have these trays that are prepared for emergency operations that sometimes you have to do in the ER. And I slowly start to open it, and my whole team is gathered around the kid with the multiple stab wounds, of course. And all of a sudden he goes, out. And you see, he flatlines. And I go, whoa, 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 let's go. So he obviously had a stab wound to his heart that was slowly bleeding in. There's a sac around the heart called the pericardial sac. That had a hole in it, but the blood wasn't coming out, right? So it slowly was oozing, and once it got to the point where there was enough blood around the heart in this pericardial sac, it couldn't pump anymore, and he basically died. So what I did was, I sprayed him with betadine.
What's betadine?
Betadine is a disinfectant, right?
Okay.
Sprayed him with betadine, open up the
Sprayed
thoracotomy.
him where the betadine?
Right here, the entire
Okay.
chest.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I got to get something to clean
Right.
him, I don't want to get septic afterwards. And I open up the thoracotomy tray. Thoracotomy means open up the chest tray.
Okay.
And I take a big scalpel and I go like this between the fourth and fifth rib. I just fillet him open right there. Pull out the rib spreaders, put the rib spreaders in, go whoosh, and it goes shh, like this.
Oh.
And there's his heart with the pericardial sac filled with blood. I cut the pericardial sac, the blood goes everywhere, and he's got one single stab wound to the heart, but it's bleeding like stink. So I put my finger on there, and we have these special suture materials that has these little what are called pledgets, like Q-tips, so it doesn't tear through the muscle, because it's a muscle anyway. I put one stitch in, one stitch back, and I sew it down, and all of a sudden, boom, 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 boom,
Wow.
boom, boom, and get his vitals back, and then take him to the operating room, wash him out. That was it. And so he went from dead to totally alive, and then about 12 days later...
So from when he flatlined to when the heart's beating again, what was that?
I had the pericardial sac open to take the pressure off in about 45 seconds.
Wow.
Dead to alive to life in prison.
No.
In an hour.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And so, well, what's weird is, so I sort of forgot about him. He was in the ICU. The interns and junior residents were taking care of him. And then, like 10 days later, I hear this, "Hey, Doc." It's like 7 in the morning, and we're about to go to breakfast before we start the day's surgeries and stuff. And I go like this, and I go, he goes, "Hey, Dubrow, Doc. I go, he goes like this. And it's the guy. He's walking out. He's being discharged, and he goes like this. He goes, "Thanks, man."
What the fuck?
And I go, "My pleasure." And so that was like one of the most radical moments in my general surgery residency, where I opened a guy's chest in the ER, sewed up a single knife wound to his heart, saved him, and he walked out 10 days.
I mean, just to open his ribs
the
like
ribs,
that.
That's like a
Imagine what that looks like.
what you call the tool that
The rib spreader.
Rib spreader.
Rib spreader.
It's
Clever
imagine
title.
exactly what you would look like. It's this tool.
Like Jaws
that has
of
these
Life.
It has these things. You got to cut between the ribs. You put it in, and then it's got this little turning thing, and it goes, and it's
Yeah,
not
it's
Like a
like a
car
car
jack.
jack.
Yep.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it just goes, and all of a sudden there's this heart filled with
And you're
blood.
doing it like frenetically fast.
I'm going, and the weirdest thing I remember is I was present while I was doing it.
And
I was
there's
going,
no time for anesthesia in that situation. The guy's
he's
just
unconscious
He's dead.
anyway.
He's dead.
By
He's
the
the
way,
guy's
he's got about
dead.
45 more seconds. He's going to be brain dead anyway.
right.
If I don't get this thinking.
Jesus.
And you stopped the blood with like your finger,
Well,
like a
so
boat,
you
like
have
a hole in a
first
boat.
thing. So he's got this balloon around the heart compressing it because the pericardial sac has got this small stab wound in it, but it's not leaking blood, so it's pushing on the heart, so the heart can't effectively
Too much pressure to pump.
blood to his
Whoa.
brain. So he's out. So then he's got this one single hole, but the hole's going whoosh whoosh, and I just stitched it up with one stitch. And it was like, did that just? I remember while I was doing it, thinking to myself, this is so fucking cool. And I guess the reason is because if he died, to be honest with you, I don't know him, and he's expected to die with that kind of injury.
Right.
So if they're expected to die and they die in your hands, you go, yeah, man, I did everything right, and you died. Sorry about that.
everything right except for and this isn't necessarily you, but how do they not recognize as he comes in that one stab wound is actually...
Well, what we would do, well, first of all, his brother is a higher priority. He's got 15 stab wounds and he's unstable. This guy's perfectly stable. Stable vital signs. You've got time. So what you would do is you'd get an ultrasound and see if there's blood in the pericardial sac. You have time. You don't open
Right.
them up right there for no reason.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Did the brother ended up being okay? The chubby brother?
We operated, yeah, he was okay. Just a whole bunch of stab wounds. to the
Thank God he
intestines.
was such a fat ass.
No shit. I was gonna say.
Helps.
It can save
It's
you.
true. He had a bunch of stab wounds to his small intestine, which is like no big deal.
No big deal.
Yeah.
Right.
But this guy just like died, and not so much after.
Man, I as you told the story about, I imagine, God, how cool would it be if somebody took that and animated it? You know, like
Totally.
animated you telling the story, and then it reminded me of a question that was on my mind much earlier in the conversation, which was on Botched. The balance between showing what's going on but not letting it be too graphic.
Yeah.
You know, that's something that I'm envisioning for this multimedia comedy show. How much of a boob job can you show? Like, it's...
Well, you can show it all. I'll tell you why. The incision is so small that the audience isn't really seeing what the surgeon's seeing.
I thought that a vasectomy is so minimally invasive that the footage of my vasectomy was underwhelming. I got full-grown men passing out at almost every show on my tour.
But when you do a vasectomy, you're actually exposing the underlying tissue. When you make an incision, only the surgeon can really see in that hole beyond.
Okay.
It's like a dark hole in there. You really
Okay,
can't see anything.
so boob job isn't that gnarly to watch.
Not at all.
Cool.
Not at all. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because on Botched, they blur things out and they don't show necessarily a lot of graphic stuff. But when you watch Dr. Pimple Popper,
Ugh.
the whole thing is the grotesque nature of the popping of the pimples, and they show it all. So I guess because it's not as serious or something, it's
Yeah.
okay to show that.
There's a weird
lancing a
type of
boil.
person who wants to see a pimple popped, and I am not that person.
I
Yeah,
am.
but
I am.
we
I don't know
would-
why.
My
I
sister
love
loves
those
it.
videos.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah,
I don't seek them out, but
it's a big.
I don't look away.
It's a big show. It's big, grotesque, but they don't blur any of it. But I
Huh.
guess it's not as sensitive because they're not. There's nothing risk. I don't know. It's interesting.
All right,
Wow.
man. Dude,
All right.
So
I
fascinating.
stand by. This has been the most fascinating conversation I think maybe we've ever had.
No, I
I've been,
appreciate-
I don't want it to end.
I've been genuinely engrossed. Is that the word?
Yeah.
Like, I've been so. I knew I would be, and this has been fantastic.
Well, I really enjoy it. Thank you guys so much.
And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, I have found my plastic surgeon. Boom. So stoked. And let me point out, for those of you who can see me right now, that I'm in New York City at this killer podcast studio that you might recognize from the Flagrant podcast. What other ones? A Brilliant Idiot. Dude, we're in New York City, baby, and I'm not telling you why because I legally cannot. Yeah, but holy shit, has this been an epic trip. And for sticking around to the end of the podcast, you, my friend, are epic too. Thank you guys so much. Ah, man, it's starting to really fucking be bad. Ugh. All right, Paul, we're good, man. Thank you, dog.